Go ahead. I started recording this just for our. I'll put it in building in public, so it'll be public. But this people know this is behind the scenes and not the actual podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe we should talk about the feedback that we received individually and kind of analyze it. Anyone want to start on that? Tim, you gave us a lot of feedback. You weren't in it, so I don't know if it's worth reiterating or if Adriel, I don't know if you had a chance to read Tim's comments in the podcast Slack.
Actually, the comment was on in the general. I think I responded to.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I did not. I've actually learned that Slack doesn't like to notify you in more than one of your groups at once or your accounts, or
it notifies. I think it only notifies when you mention the person.
Of course,
right. A lot of them, yeah. So maybe Tim, to do a quick, just kind of overview.
Yeah, I could go over it. Yeah, I can do that. I mean, the first set of comments were just technical feedback in terms of editing. One of the main things was that I liked having the screenshot or whatever focused in the beginning, and then as you're talking, showing the person who's talking. But I felt that the box that the person was in was teeny tiny compared to the content. And also, after a minute or so, it should just be the person. Maybe you can go back and forth. I know that it takes editing work to do that sort of thing. So it's up to you when you want to do that. But definitely making the person bigger should be, I assume, just as easy as.
And we got a lot of feedback like that. So
yeah.
And actually, it was a bug with Zoom that I thought Zoom on the cloud recording would at least show all the people on the right-hand side. But turns out if you're doing cloud recording, they don't have that option. And they're very small.
Oh, weird. Mm-hmm.
But they do on the local recording. We'll have to figure that out. But at least definitely showing it and then going back to the people more often is definitely doable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you did no editing whatsoever. It was just live then with. Well, I know you said we cut off.
Yeah, we did two.
At the beginning.
Yeah, so we recorded the whole thing, including like a pre-talk and a post-talk, and then I uploaded 2 videos, one without the pre and post, and one with. So one's kind of like a behind the scenes. If we had Patreons, and that would be this is your, special extra content,
and sausage making.
Yeah,
content.
And then one with just the thing in beginning. And there's definitely some parts in there that if I'd had time, I would have just gone and edited out. And I don't even mind if we have jump cuts, which is where you just kind of talking and then all of a sudden your head moves and you continue a sentence. It looks weird on video, but it's customary on YouTube.
Saved so many of my lectures, that jump cut technique.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm just like, what's the name of that book? And I go and look at it and I come back and I look like a genius.
Yeah. Now they have this, what is it? Descript? Anyways, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's one that'll transcribe your video, and then you can go and edit the transcription, and it will edit the video to match your edited transcription.
Wow.
Really?
That's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And then there's other options while we're just kind of on this topic is I can, like if we want to leave the screen kind of like this, and then I can go to, let me get something. I don't have anything to show. It's all right. Maybe we'll continue and I can demo this in a bit, but there's different ways of showing the content without taking up all like,
live in the Zoom, you mean?
Well, so I could just do it in my camera. And then
nice.
And then I can do all sorts of fancy stuff.
You know what? I just remembered also. I was chosen as part of the beta. I'm not even sure if it's in beta, but I never used it. With what is that new?
Oh,
vidcast recording tool. Let me see.
Well, there's actually a few, but the one that we use, Adriel, what's the one we use? What's the streaming software?
StreamYard.
StreamYard is one.
Yeah.
No, there was something else that seemed really slick in the demo, and it was the kind of thing where, like, one of the uses could be kind of a live recording of a presentation where you have a slideshow you're working off of, but they also do it as like newscast style presentations and things like that, and where you could hand off control from one host to another. And it looked pretty slick with the things you could do, and including positioning and sizing on the fly. I'm trying a Google search here now.
Yeah, so we could look for tools like that. That would make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, so
Anyways.
having the face shown more, going to
Oh,
individuals.
it's called
Oh, that's right.
Mhm.
I remember that one. I don't know how to
What a
spell
great
it.
name.
MMMM.
MMHMM. Anyway, while you look up that, I guess one of my main general feedbacks was that I thought talking over a tweet would be limited, but it really seemed like a good size for the size of one of your episodes, right? It filled out an episode. It could have been even shorter a little bit. There was some of the conversation I thought towards the end that could have been cut out. And there's some other stuff you could swap in, which means there's optimization that can be done. But talking over the right tweet is, I think, the perfect size for an episode. There it is, yeah.
So I guess he's showing.
Yeah, and then he hands it off, and so you can have all these things going, and it does exactly what I thought was a problem, which is the person in your vidcast was too small, and in this you kind of have the content of the tweet or whatever as the background, like a newscast would do.
They don't show multiple people on here that much, though.
Well, they're handing off. I don't know if they show multiple people at the same time. I don't think they do, but they hand off the same presentation to another person.
Yeah, because some of the feedback that I got was that you also sometimes when someone's talking, you want to be able to see the facial expressions of the other people. Oh, so there they go.
There you go.
So they have that one person and everyone else. Yeah. So yeah, it might be good to look into that. Of course, we have a limited budget, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe while it's in beta, it's still free. So I'll look at that.
Yeah, it looks like there's a free version and a paid version.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of like
the
drugs.
free version, I mean.
The first taste is free.
Yeah, and the free version is not as good. I don't do drugs. This is just what I've heard.
The first one free is always the best. Actually.
Oh yeah, actually that's true. Yeah, that's good. I should write that down. That's good.
It's kind of like a free trial. It's different from freemium. Drugs are more like a free trial because they cut you off.
Yep.
And it's it's always better. Okay, so any other? So yeah, so keep some other feedback similar to what Tim was saying is keep it below 30 minutes.
I didn't say that necessarily.
No, you didn't. Another person did.
Okay.
But it's funny because a lot of people are used. Like one guy said, "Oh, I listen to all these like highly edited podcasts." And I said, "Yeah, we're not going to do that. This is not. This is not This American Life." Which is like for every hour of content, they have like 20 hours of story and figuring it out, and that's based on real stuff too. That's not some of it's made up stories, but yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing journalistic packages, right? We're not doing a package.
It's more like Joe Rogan, which is one of the most popular ones out there, and it's low edit.
Well, I would hope it'd be more like I don't know what's a good reference. I really like Opening Arguments, where they have it like they have it planned out what the segments are, and they do the segments so often that they got the feel for it.
Right.
But then it is on the fly. They just edit out the ums and stuff like that, right? But it's not that much work after they're done.
Yeah. Oh, and Descript has an automatic removal. By the way.
Yeah.
Or extra words. Yeah. Any other observations you had, Tim, on the one?
So, I liked having different perspectives. Obviously, Steve is always going to bring in the most, what's the term? Like the richest
Academic.
and most, more than academic, but, the richest feedback. And I really like here's what he's trying to do. And I in this case, Mike, I even found it surprising your take on what Ted Cruz was trying to do, right? And one thing that struck me as something that would be interesting is because you did kind of grade his tweets, and I would like to see grading on other people's tweets. That could be better organized. So, with repetition, it gets, okay, no, how did they do on that? How did they do on that? How did they do on that? And just give numbers and a little comment. So that could be more concise, but I would like to see more of that. But also, what was missing for me was what would be a good comeback to Ted Cruz, maybe focusing on what his actual argument was, right? That one point was like I had some ideas of my own of what I would write to contradict what he was getting at, right? And would like to hear your opinions on that. So that was one thing.
Yeah,
that's like two, in my mind, what you just said are like two, what did you call them? From like opening arguments to set, you had a word for that, two like set pieces, things they always do. That could be
segments.
Yeah, segment. So that's like two segments right there that we could give a go on.
Yeah, I think those are, you definitely had segments, right, in your first edition. And they could be more well-defined and then over time be more well-practiced and concise.
So, so the thought was that we do that first impression and I'd do it better next time to say, introduce yourself and say what your first impression of this is. And I think we did that well, except for I didn't say to introduce yourself. And so that would be the first time to go around, and then observe the tweet.
The introduce yourself and introducing the vidcast, I think, should be a bumper at some point. You just work out what that introduction is and don't have to redo it every time. So it could be just a pre-recorded bumper.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm talking about introducing the actual topic.
Right, introducing
so
the
that
topic.
Would be.
But that was another one of my comments, was the first thing should be kind of a bumper, and here's who we are, and here's our topic of the day. Right.
But so the response that we think would work, I would like to put on I was calling it winning. So like in this responses section, we're talking about the responses that other people made. And then at the very end, I think is where we give, these are our suggested responses for different purposes, right? Because it depends on your goals. So each of us could even give multiple. It's not like there's going to be one best response. So choosing our favorite responses and then creating our winning response, and it could be multiple.
And since we want to be even-handed, right? Maybe it should always be like one response opposing or one response reinforcing. I don't know if we can do that. Maybe the main post, like in the case of Ted Cruz, you scored him really high, and maybe you don't need another supporting. But another way to be even-handed would try to alternate sides, or just rotating topics, which is the apolitical things as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't have in here in the observations. We also, I think, we need to talk about potential rephrasing, or maybe that is under this observations thing, is potential rephrasings of the initial tweet, which would be supportive of, or that utterance that would be supportive of that. And then we are getting both sides because we're still manning the original statement, and then we're still manning a response. But yeah, we could also do another positive, a reinforcing response as well.
Yeah, I never have any problem taking whatever side. So if we ever come across one where people are uncomfortable taking the other side, I'll do it. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Deal, man.
Yeah, well, in most cases, I wouldn't be uncomfortable.
Yeah. There's always like you say that, and then you immediately want to roll back, right? I immediately started thinking, is there one? But I don't know.
Like in this case, I think I wouldn't have trouble doing it.
So
Right.
actually, I do have it in here. So in the winning section,
Yeah.
one round of each of us rephrasing the original expression, one round choosing a favorite response, and one round creating our winning responses. And we could change the order of these, but that's a thought. I don't know what y'all
Okay. I like it. We can try to adhere to this very strictly next time.
And those things I think should be prepared. I mean, you can adapt them on the fly if one of us said something that changed your thinking, right? But it's good to have that prepared to go so that segment is snappy, right?
So it sounds like the first thing is we need to choose the initial utterance. And I would like this, I'm thinking rather than actually showing the tweet, I mean, we can show the tweet again but in this case, there was the tweet in the video, and I think it would have been nicer, and someone even mentioned this, maybe I should just quote the text and say it came from Twitter rather than showing the tweet. If it has, I don't know, sometimes images are important, so maybe that's not the right way to do it. Especially if it's a meme. But that one was a bit confusing because you had both the video and the text. So that would have been one. And also, if we're taking a comment from a video segment, it'd be good to put the quote on the screen and then we could play the video for context if we want to. But I think it should always be a quote, and it should be a tweet-size quote at most. Do y'all have any impressions of that?
I agree.
Yeah, I'm still practicing trying to find good stuff. I don't really have a good sense for it yet of what it is that would work. So I was wondering if Tim, if you had a CRT, a couple of CRT examples, because you were talking about that in Slack.
Yeah,
I didn't found anything that really stood out because I was looking around and I was like, well, none of these really click for me, but I also might be looking for the wrong kind of thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, my main feedback from the previous one is that we should do another tweet, just because when you're iterating, you want to, iterate on something that's fresh in your mind. And I haven't seen any good tweets about that. It's been podcasts I'm listening to, and it's so complicated. There's so many different aspects that I don't think is a good next choice for that reason, right?
And I'd still like to save that a little bit down the line, just because it is people are not rational about.
I mean, part of the problem is that with that subject, I would be more focused on different aspects of the substance of that debate rather than how they're saying it or what some specific person said. And I don't know if that's the route we want to go down.
Yeah, we're more about how it was said than the substance of it, or the.
Yeah, those things play off of each other pretty well.
They do, yeah.
So it's
so
always,
you have to kind of go into it.
I know where to look for a good thing to cover on that, which would be find somebody who's making some comment to justify. There's kind of what seems to be hypocrisy there, which is the cries on the right against cancel culture and censorship, right? There's the concerns on the right of censorship, and then there are laws being passed in many states by Republicans to ban teaching of critical race theory. So it's literally by law censorship juxtaposed with cries of cancel culture. So, somebody who made a tweet that brought those things together and justified it would be an interesting one to talk about.
Yeah, taking the Ted Cruz thing into account, maybe a tweet from a lawmaker who supports it saying what they're voting for and what it will do is good enough of a start. Maybe that's the kind of thing that we want because I think thinking about the Cruz thing, it worked well because it invited us to kind of investigate. It invites investigation, and maybe a tweet like that. Maybe that's kind of what we're looking for, or what I'm looking for. I mean, I think you guys are better at finding them than me. I find all these like giant blob-like sticky things. Because that's just what I'm drawn to is these huge messes. But maybe something like that, like something that invites.
Well,
beyond.
I do think that is good for an episode is any tweet where it's not a simple direct argument, right? In other words, it's exactly the kind of tweet I wouldn't make, and yet says so much with so little. And you can go into what are all the things it's saying and is it doing a good job, right?
Oh, that didn't work out well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So just
the one I suggested, yeah.
So let's maybe talk through. I don't know why that's all. Why is that so horribly positioned? Yeah, so I mean, I think this one could work. So this is one that that Steve suggested. I mean, that could work. Now then, but the interesting part, so we could go into should you or should you not remove statues of people that made an error in the past, and when should you? I guess we should say when rather than should or should not.
Yeah.
But that's not. I don't think that's this podcast, right? So this podcast talk about how this person phrased their argument and how people responded to it. So I don't know if this is very juicy in that area. But I mean, that did not care for Indigenous children. He had them forcibly removed from their homes.
I feel like talk on this one. In other words, this one seems too straightforward to me. We can definitely talk about all the politics behind it, but we're talking about the substance then.
Yeah.
So from my view, and I'm sure Steve could always find something to talk hours about on anything, but from my view, it seems like a pretty straightforward argument. So maybe there's a surprise in there, maybe not.
Yeah, I think the surprise is this is what do people think is a good reason for removing a statue?
Yeah.
What is that gonna do? What does the removing of the statue do in terms of, we can use the legal term remedy? What does it do for that? And so all these assumptions about the role of statues in public commemoration come up, which I think are really
that's a big one. But I almost feel like the Southern Civil War heroes statues is richer for something like that, because it very much also pits patriotism, different kinds of patriotism, different kinds of it's a little, I find it a richer subject than this one. That's, you won't find that many people supporting forcibly removing Indigenous people, right? They'll say, no, he should be remembered for other things. But, people do regard Civil War heroes as heroes. And so just on that basis alone, see no reason to remove, what they actually did was not something to be condemned. Yeah,
I think it's the same debate in my mind.
It's the same debate, but
it's just, we're a little bit more
richer because
we're just removed from the culture and we're removed from the context. That's the only difference.
I guess.
I mean, we're just not as familiar with Canadian history.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think the U.S. one. Yeah, it's a little different because
it would be hard to find a Canadian. It would be hard to find a Canadian today that is still in favor of forcibly removing Indigenous people.
But you could find people in favor of Pierre Trudeau, though.
Yeah, and just the general defense of the statues, which I think goes back to Steve's comment on.
Yeah,
they seem quite similar. Where it's just
It's also Padre Sarah falls into that too, right? canonize Padre Sarah.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting one just because there's a lot in there about the role of public commemoration and what it does. And is this really an appropriate remedy? And what do people say about that in the comments? It's kind of an interesting argument to investigate because this seems like it's being proposed as a legal remedy. And people are like,
gets
oh,
bigger
this
and
is
bigger
censorship
because
of history. This is censorship of our history. Plus you're erasing
actually,
everything good that Trudeau did. And I mean, just go off they go, it's fun.
Yeah.
Now,
And it's huge because like it brings in Columbus and the recently declared Juneteenth holiday. All those things are aspects of that.
So now, so we do have to fence our yard at some point.
So maybe Juneteenth would be even more, if we could find a good tweet on Juneteenth would be.
That'd be a good one. Yeah. Yeah, I bet there's something out there about that. We can research that one. I can look into that one.
Yeah. So I think it's just finding a tweet, and it is going to be challenging to figure out how far down we go into the substance of the argument as opposed to the wording. I know we can't do just the wording, right? That's not it.
Well,
but do we want to time box it at 30 minutes and maybe even time box each section just so that we know how deep we're going?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the difference is between substance and style. How do you guys parse that?
Well, there's not a bright line, but if we did sentence diagramming on this, then I would think that would be. It's not even style. It's like why did they choose Pierre Trudeau rather than is it MP up there, Adriel?
Any other prime minister, any other old prime minister,
or prime minister Pierre Trudeau, right? Didn't just talk about the actual words used in the statement, rather than you. So if you do that, if you're just talking about the words in the statement and in their order and other words that could have used, then you're not getting into whether or not the statute should be removed. So that's kind of one way to do it. But at some point. But I'm not advocating for that strict of a thing. I'm just saying.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
It's like the Toolman model I talked about before.
Right.
You could do the Toolman model and it would reveal a lot.
The difference between substance and style is how much are we actually talking about the sentence we're looking at? Because if we were talking about that one and it turned into the debate on what should be, enforced by law and what should be celebrated and that sort of thing, then we're not talking about that tweet anymore. But we could be talking about, what would be a good tweet to justify this side or justify that? You could go back to, is this doing a good job of that, right? What would be a better way to say that a statue should be torn down?
Yeah, because I think the warrant, if we're using the Toolman verbiage, the warrant for that one is anybody who has supported like a morally reprehensible program does not deserve a statue. And then you get into the weeds pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's a good warrant.
But we could talk about why they use the hashtag public.
Yeah, I wondered that too.
What's this emoji? What's the intent of this emoji? Why is not care capitalized at the beginning?
I know. Yeah.
Which is good. Although you'd think if it's emphasized, it'd be all caps. So I just talk about more sentence diagramming than the topic.
Like what here is just bizarre.
But even
stuff and what's. Yeah.
But Steve, also when you were mentioning that was, and I can't remember the technical term you used, but that was a celebratory tweet from Ted Cruz and not he wasn't convincing anyone of it. He was meta-wise, but the overarching theme was celebration and a bit of a I told you so, right? And so that still discussing that but just over the words rather than the whole speech.
Got you. Yeah. Okay. No, I understand that. I think that the diagramming is an important.
In the case of Ted Cruz, it was that celebratory because it was after the vote, or it's.
I mean, he had a full written speech. They stood up and gave immediately after the vote because they knew it wasn't going to pass.
I don't even know when that happened. I think it was just in the business section where senators can speak on whatever issues they want.
Yeah, but
Or
it
they
was
won't-
literally just after the vote.
Oh, it was. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So the speaker took the call, and then he said, then Ted Cruz asked for time to speak.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it's celebratory because it's sort of like what are our values and how are our values, why are our values important, was kind of the skeleton of the thesis there, any speech like that. So, but I mean, it doesn't mean that they can't suggest change. People can take them and be like, like we just
Yeah.
had 4th of July. So Frederick Douglass's "What to a Slave is the 4th of July" speech is similar kind of blending of the power of the epidictic, the power of values.
Another controversy that comes up there a lot is Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
Day,
Mhm.
where everybody's quoting him for
Yeah.
so many different reasons. And this is the first year I've really seen, I'm sure it was before, but this is the first year I really saw people saying, do not quote MLK,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
your reasons, your self-serving reasons. Do not.
Yeah. And they pick the worst quotes. They don't pick anything really cool that he said, in my opinion. But I mean, it's hard to find something bad he said. I'll say that, but it's mostly pretty good. But they don't pick the really aggressive stuff.
Right, and so like a lot of the snark was about people picking his greatest hits rather than actually understanding it, right?
Oh man, yeah, that's
So
that is a pet peeve of mine.
So what do y'all think about
that? Might be a rich topic at some point.
Mhm.
I'll put that as a note.
So what do y'all think about this? Is another one, and I'm just pulling the tweets that we kind of threw in the Slack channel.
I tried to understand this. I literally have no idea what this is about, and I couldn't figure it out.
Was this you, Tim? Did you put that in the?
Oh yeah,
Tim.
I think you have to watch it. I didn't watch it. As I read more and more of the replies, first of all, I don't know if you know who Jason Calacanis is.
No, I watched it, and it didn't help.
Jason Calacanis, yeah, he's somebody you have to know who he is. First of all, he's like a successful entrepreneur who was more successful as like a thought leader in the space than as an actual entrepreneur. Although now he's like an angel investor who's created new types of angel investing. He's just a well-known, popular figure in startups. And I didn't even know about this other podcast or video thing. Apparently he's on with friends, and apparently friends got on, like hit nerves with each other and like took their fight public. And so part of the question is, was he really kind of publicly overreacting, or is this part of promoting the show? Is this staged? That sort of thing. Yeah, it was just kind of an exploding controversy within the startup world.
Well, I think that could be good.
Did they even get canceled actually, or?
Well, he canceled the next episode. It's too soon to see if they're going to keep doing it. So it's kind of unfolding whether or not it was staged or whether there's a real spat going on here.
Huh. So somebody who's not this guy made this video to make fun of him.
Or is Jason Calacanis actually participating?
Yeah. Or was this video something he made against the other?
This is more of a yes, no episode.
It's a. I have trouble understanding who made the video and who's being insulted in the video.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure it out. Maybe I'm just like.
I don't have all the answers yet, so
okay.
I wouldn't be ready to go over this one at this point.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting. It is the All In podcast, and that is something Jason Calacanis is participating in. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So
he's fun. I do like the graphics though.
Yeah. So what else did we have in the Slack channel? Let's see.
I think what I might do when I propose topics is I might give a little simple Toolman diagram to kind of show the way I'm seeing it from an argument deconstructive perspective to kind of show the ways in. That might be helpful. So I can draw one of those up on a slide real quick.
Yes, I've been wanting to. One of the side projects I've been wanting to do for a long time is like a website or a tool that is like, is this your argument? Especially to respond to very vague, like I don't want to call them dog whistles, but those comments that are to hit emotion more than logic.
Yeah.
To respond
Well,
to this, what you're trying to say here, right?
Yeah, it's a sliding
Yeah.
scale because all arguments
Absolutely.
are rooted in ideology. So there's all kinds of things we forget to bring up because we all assume that we have a shared reality, which may or may not be the case.
Right. But so for the Ted Cruz one, this would be perfect. Is this your argument? Which is
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the fun thing about the argument reconstruction, like picking a motion, is you can say, well, if we go with the theory that the motion is this, then these arguments are this. That allows us to say something about it, which might clarify it. But we might not be right. We might not get exactly. But then someone else could say, well, what if the motion was this? We tweak it that way. And you get a lot more you can say about the argument rather than less, which is actually, ironically, the best way to do argument evaluation is to have a ton of things to say. Because then you can really, let's look at it from this way, that way, that way. But yeah, this one, I think I suggested this one about the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, I just thought I'd pull it up. So if we wanted to do something like
pick a part of it, it was my thought.
Yeah, right. So we'd try and maybe even pull a quote from someone saying like them quoting someone. Because I think in an article, well, if it's editorial though, they'll have
this is a policy analyst saying what they have discovered in their research and making an argument about that. So it's written by a policy analyst, I think, somebody who does public policy analysis. So they didn't really interview anybody. It's just like, here's what I believe based on what I have looked at.
Yeah, so we could pull a quote from there.
And this might be a pretty good topic. I don't know if it's still circulating in people's minds about those Southern voting restrictions, like you can't have water in line and you have to, all these kind of weird rules. Well, I mean,
I think we should outlaw lines.
Yeah.
If a polling station has more than 10 people at a line at a time, they should open another polling.
Open a new register.
Yeah, right.
Right. And that should be the law, and that should be the federal law.
I mean, there's the whole thing about should election day be a holiday, national holiday, right? In other countries, it is.
Yeah, that's freaking obvious too. I'm sorry.
That is
putting my own opinions.
Going off today, I love it. The National Voting Day is a very standard high school and college debate exercise topic. I've used it a million times. Like that should be a federal holiday. It's just good to teach people how to make.
It's probably up there with abolish the electoral college, right?
No, actually, that one. You know which one is actually most popular for beginning debaters is abolish zoos, make zoos illegal, which is weird. But you get to hit a lot of big moral and ethical kinds of arguments. I think that's why it's popular, because it looks like policy, but then it becomes like animal rights very quickly, and that's messy, and it gets them to be like, oh, this is harder than I thought it was.
It's surprising to I think younger people for sure. Right?
Oh yeah, they're always like, what a dumb topic, and then they're like, that was great.
So I guess what I'd like to suggest is that we all go out, look for tweets or other quotes. Tweets probably preferred just because they're easier. But certainly open to anything. And then propose the actual text. And then, we try and focus on more of a sentence kind of diagramming format. And then we try and construct. And then, so what we do before each show, and probably the Wednesday before each show, is pick a main utterance, and then like 2 responses or 3 responses, and have that all prepped so everyone can see it. I mean, if you find another response on that day and want to bring it up, that's fine. But and then we kind of plan our route to go around, and everyone kind of knows, okay, so this is my rephrasing of the main tweet that I think would be better, or 2 options of rephrasing the main tweet. And then here's like my suggested how to redo the responses that were done to improve them and make them winning. Does that sound reasonable? What do you think?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good statement of what I've been trying to figure out how to do. So I think I can do this.
And I think the podcasts I listen to generally have like a Google Doc that is their prep doc that we all share and work in together. So that we can have that to lay out the format and then fill out our different sections. At this stage, it would more be, okay, everybody go out and pick a couple tweets or statements that they'd like to propose. And then from there, once we've picked one, then we can go and break it down into the different segments.
Maybe we should talk about how we pick them. All of us seem pretty comfortable with doing anyone's suggestions and aren't too dogmatic, but that also can leave it to inaction. So I don't know if we want to vote or if I should just, be the benevolent dictator and choose one.
I kind of feel like, my thought on that is it's kind of like case by case, right? Because sometimes we'll probably be in big disagreement about which one's best, and we could vote. But a lot of times people will be like, meh. And then Bentley, you can be like, well, I really like this one. And we'll all be like, okay. And then we'll just do it.
I think we can have some guidelines, right? Some heuristics. The more indirect the statement, or the more it elicits in a single statement, the more interesting it will be. That was my main problem with the one we show with Pierre, whatever his name is. It was too direct an argument. So that might be one guideline. Another guideline I would propose is how rich is the conversation in the thread, right? So, how much can we also talk about the responses to it? I'm sure we'll come up with a ton more guidelines as we go, but those are the sorts of things we should kind of pluck out as good reasons to pick something.
Do you mind throwing those in the Slack, and then I'll try and add those to a central doc where we have our flow and then topics, and then I'll make another doc for this upcoming for next Monday, and then let's have everyone kind of look for things that match that, post it in, and then Wednesday let's either, if there's an obvious winner, we'll go with that, and if not, we'll arm wrestle over the internet.
Build an app.
Yeah.
Internet arm wrestle.
You have to tap the button, whoever taps it
exactly.
fastest.
Yeah. I get that sound effect in there.
Yeah. And then we'll do another. So next Monday, I think we'll do another one, do a little bit more editing, try and get people's faces in there more.
I'm going to try to find a CRT one that is palatable, even though if we don't do it, I totally understand, but this is like my personal.
So
challenge.
yeah, I still would like to
palatable, but I totally understand why we wouldn't want to do it. But I just want to, see if there's one that you could be like, okay, given 6 months, yes.
Yeah, I think when we get our feet underneath us, and I would still. Yeah,
I appreciate how sensitive it is for people. For sure.
It's just even more sensitive that it's for old white guys.
makes me want to leap in. I'm like the worst possible person for public facing stuff because I'm like, oh yeah, let's go.
We'll try and keep you from canceling yourself.
Yeah, please do. It might be too late.
Luckily, no one's listening, so it's not like we'll get canceled. Although a friend of Adriel and I's, Adriel's sister, almost had her YouTube channel shut down recently. And almost no one was watching that episode, so they're doing something.
I had a bunch of my friends look at it on Substack because I just tweeted out the link, what we were doing and everything. I put all that stuff in Substack, and the comments I got back were things like, this is really unique. Other podcasts don't really do this. And I kind of pushed back on like, what do you mean do this? And they're like, well, they don't really focus on like the parts of the argument you're focusing on. And the way I read it was like, you're not looking to determine who's right or what's, whether this was true or not, kind of like a journalistic approach. So I thought that was kind of good insight that people kind of understand that kind of nuance, or maybe are looking for it. Hopefully that's the more optimistic read.
Yeah. Did anyone else get any other feedback that you want to share? I think I kind of cut that off.
No, I just thought of that just now. I was like, oh yeah, canceling. And then I thought, well, no, nobody was like, hey, you might want to think twice. None of my friends are like that.
I was just about to review the comments I got and make sure I had all the points from there. Someone was saying they really don't want to hear all the analysis. They would just like a highlight. So they want like a 5 or 10 minute summary of what, what we said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
This is like dividing. This is
bad.
the thing that we were talking about earlier, of dividing the podcast into all these little mini podcasts.
yeah, which Joe Rogan does on his. They have the little clip version of it,
It's also probably got a full-time team dedicated to just doing that.
and he makes enough money to do that.
Yep.
He has the producers and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think a lot of the comments that we make are going to start repeating themselves the more we do this, and it's going to evolve more into, you know, this is this kind of argument with that. And what people want when they're listening is something interesting or surprising every couple of moments. They don't want to hear us just going over the same thing over and over again. So they, you know, which is again why I really like the Ted Cruz one, because the take on what he was trying to do there was actually surprising. Because I know reading it, my first reaction would just be to hate on him.
He's a liar.
Probably do one of
my
those.
reaction.
Exactly. It
He's
would be.
lying.
It would be also what you called the kind of grammar police approach of fact checking. It's not true that all this is blah, blah, blah. That was very good to hear being put down.
And
yeah.
And I think we do need to, because all these topics can go very far. I think we need to time box it at an hour. I mean, sorry, 30 minutes actually. Y'all can tell me if you think that's just not long enough to do this. I
think that we're so new. I think it makes sense to experiment with different lengths and see if we like it and see if what the audience response is. Because, I mean, I guess people would probably say, "Oh, I want to hear more." I mean, it might not be helpful because it might just be by topic, whether they like the topic or not. It won't give us any kind of guideline for the general practice. But if we're comfortable with 30 minutes, why not do 30 minutes? Because then, you know, everybody's schedules are tight. You could record several weeks worth of podcasts in one go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we got about 5 more minutes. Yeah, let's, I'll try and work up our kind of document of the future flow, and put in the rubric on deciding on what's best. But everyone go out, try and find tweets or quotes in whatever topics you think are interesting, and just throw them. You know, they don't have to be great. Throw them in there. We'll chat about them, and then on Wednesday I'll ask you, okay, what's your personal favorite, and you choose one. I mean, we could do the ranked choice voting thing again, but the main thing is get it down to that, and then if you know, and then we'll figure it out if we don't agree.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. So we'll continue with the experiment and reassess. Like Princess Bride, I may kill you in the morning, but we'll keep going. Yeah, because I'm still not sure that, like, everyone, they were politely saying they would watch it. I didn't get any, oh my gosh, when's the next one coming out? And for me, that's kind of, but I don't know that we're there yet where we would know whether it's going to do that. And maybe we're getting value out of doing it ourselves for our own projects, but we'll see. But be thinking about that. What would it take for you to continue investing the time in this project? Cool.
Sounds good.
All right. I will end